Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back. We've got our next session going on here. This is going to be a gold sponsor session, and with me is my good friend Doug Showalter of Showalter and Company, and he's going to be doing a session called "Are Your Supervisors Really Leaders?" Take it away,
Yeah.
my friend.
All righty. Hey, thank you. And then thanks again, Ricardo, for letting us be a gold sponsor. It's just nice to sponsor something that's so powerful, so great. I love all this free training, and sometimes people don't even take advantage of it, which makes me crazy. So it's out there, it's free. Why not? Another quick shout out to Jill, my better half, who wrote that blog that's out on withinthetrenches.net, and it's on our Facebook page. And she wrote a blog about her career. Great stuff. Get a chance to read it. Take a look at it because it's really a good one out there. So let's get started. Today's class is, are your supervisors really leaders? And sometimes that's a real question. So we'll get into that in a second here. If you don't know who I am, and hopefully you do, but if you don't, I'm Doug Showalter. And I retired from the California Highway Patrol after 30 years. And the California Highway Patrol, you should know, has 26 communication centers. And no matter where you get hired in the state of California with the California Highway Patrol, you are immediately sent to our academy up in Sacramento for 3 luxurious weeks up there hanging out with instructors and all that stuff. And it's a great way to kind of immerse people into our program, what we do. And I only wish that when I was in charge of the whole state program over there, that we would have done a lot more supervisory classes. But at that time, we had a governor that didn't really approve a lot of training. Yeah, don't get me started. And so I really thought that the supervisors needed a lot of training also, not just dispatchers, not just the new folks, but everybody needs to be trained periodically. So that was a big thing for me. Anyway, so when I was in charge of the state, it was great because I had to write manuals and training guides, and we came up with a whole bunch of cool things while I was up there for a couple of years, and it was a great experience to be up there. And then I went and I worked in San Luis Obispo, which is a small kind of beach town, for my remainder of my career. And then after I retired, I moved to the great state of Tennessee, which is where I live now, just south of Nashville, which is great because everybody says when they come to town to visit us, they say, let's go to Nashville. And I'm like, have you been to Vegas? Same thing. So it's the same situation out there. And then for about the last 17 years or so, I've trained around the country, big and small comm centers all over the place. And in 2015, we started our own company. And we started our own way we do things. And if you were in our class yesterday, I talked a lot about the fact that we do a lot of research in the business world. And I see what's working out there in the business world. And I think, why aren't we doing it in here? And you're going to hear me talk about that today as we get rolling. So, all right. So that's kind of who I am. If you don't know who I am, that's who I am. Go check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, LinkedIn. We're all over the place. Send us some messages and all that stuff. We'll be glad to talk to you. Quick shout out to we're part of We Speak Dispatch, a great little program that we put together about 3 years ago. It's a bunch of us to sit around and talk about dispatch stuff. It's only every podcast, and you can listen to it on podcast or watch it on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all those other things out there. Anyway, that little podcast thing out there, 26,000 podcast plays, 46 countries. We have great episodes, all kinds of guests. They're only 15 minutes long. That way you can listen to it on your way to work, on your way home. It's going to be great. So we talk about all kinds of issues. And if you want to be a guest on there, all you have to do is send us an email and we'll bring you on as a guest. And it's always a fun experience. We have a great time with everybody. We're getting ready to do our Christmas episode. We have a gift exchange and all this stuff. So it'll be coming up soon. So you'll see that if you'd like. All right. So let me ask you, are your supervisors really leaders? I mean, a lot of times people were promoted for the wrong reason. We needed somebody to take the position. I like this person to make him a supervisor. And it's like, holy cow. I mean, there are people out there right now, and you probably know some, that shouldn't have ever been promoted or shouldn't be in any kind of supervisory role. I've worked with people that when we were short on the floor and I said, hey, maybe we should go work the floor because I'm not going to make everybody work so much overtime. I'll go out and help them. The other supervisor working with told me, hey, I promoted for a reason. I don't want to do that no more. And I'm like, that's crazy to me. And luckily that person didn't last too long. But it's one of these things where it's like, I'm not too good to go out on the floor. My last couple of days at work, I was answering calls. That's the best part of my job. Besides being a supervisor and a leader position, I wanted to make sure they understood I'm right there with you all. I'm right there to help you guys out and do whatever we can to work together to make it our center the greatest it can be. So, because a lot of people that promote think that title is going to automatically give them respect and admiration of all their employees. And that's not true at all. That title's going to get you something, but it ain't going to get you respect. It ain't going to get you trust until you earn it. And you have to earn it. I worked with a captain one time who was, he was very proud of his title of captain. And every time he went anywhere, he would always introduce himself as, I'm Captain somebody, I'm Captain this. And we wanted to get him a hat that said, I'm Captain, because he was so stuck on his title. But as a leader, no. We made fun of him a lot because he just didn't have the gravitas to be a good leader. I mean, he wanted the title, but not the responsibility that came with it. So that was a tough one for us. I mean, what about learning leadership? We learn it from our past and our current leaders. When we see them do something that we think, why in the world are they doing that? I've seen supervisors get involved in a yelling match on the operations floor with an employee. That's the dumbest thing you could do. You can't do that kind of stuff. When I've taught supervisory issues or supervisory classes, that's one thing I like to talk about is I'm not going to yell at anybody. I don't get yelled at, and I don't want them yelling at me. And that's just the way it is. And it's like I hold everybody to that responsibility. You're not children. I'm not your daddy. It's, we can't have that kind of stuff. We need to be, if we're going to be a supervisor and a leader, we're going to lead them in the right way and show them respect and responsibilities and understand that I have to give them respect and responsibilities. So it's a big learning experience out there. I mean, some agencies don't prepare people at all. I have a good friend that promoted to a supervisor position. She was the least senior person at the comm center. Everybody else had way more years than her. But her management said, hey, we like the way you do things. We want you to be the next supervisor. The only problem with that was they didn't train her to do anything. They just put her in the position. Go in the office and this is your job. That's setting somebody up to fail. I mean, that is setting somebody. Thank goodness she called. I worked with her. She's still at that position over there. She's doing a lot better. But it's one of these things where you can't just put somebody in a position and say, good luck. Because being a good supervisor or leader requires some training, some knowledge, some experiences, some ways to handle certain topics out there. So, I mean, on the bottom of my business card for the Highway Patrol, I used to have that saying that's on the screen up there. It says, failing to train is training to fail. Because if we don't train our people, you might as well expect them to fail. Because we're not giving them the tools to do that job. And that's the biggest thing to me, which I hear this all the time when I hear people saying, oh, that employee's doing this or they're doing that. Why have they been allowed to do that? I guarantee it's not the first time they've ever done such a thing. We have to consider those things. So, I mean, sometimes it just results in the fact that somebody in a leadership position is just going to give up. And I've worked with people like that have just basically given up. There's nothing I can do. I don't really care. When I first promoted back to Los Angeles, I transferred out for a while, took the test, promoted back to LA. When I got to LA, I worked with two very senior supervisors on graveyard. Great. I was number 17 out of 17 supervisors. I was the last one in seniority. They put me on graveyard with these two. And these two said these things that you see right now. Well, that's just the way it's always been. Don't make trouble for yourself. Don't rock the boat. And you can't change anything. And their whole supervisory role was to sit in the office and do basically nothing. And I was like, that's crazy to me. I can't do that. Because there used to be a girl at work. And she had this really annoying problem of, and I'm sure a lot of you work with people like this. She had this problem of where she would be on the phone with somebody going, ma'am, sir, ma'am. And it used to drive me crazy because I had to sit across from her. And my callers were asking me, is that you? And I'm like, no, it's the crazy lady sitting across from me screaming. But here's the thing. I would see the supervisor walk past her all the time. And I'm like, they're not going to say nothing to this crazy woman screaming over here? Nope, they did not. So when I promoted back to LA, she was still working there. And I still heard her on the floor. And I told them, how come we don't say nothing to that? How come we don't like address that issue? And they're like, don't make trouble. I'm like, whatever. So one day I had to make a tape for the district attorney. There was some kind of an incident on the freeway. I had to make a tape and I'd listen to the calls. And I listened to one of her calls. Then I realized something and I had to look it up and find out. Our Plantronics headsets at that time had a noise canceling feature. If you reached a certain decibel, it would cut off. So all the callers were hearing was wah, bah, bah. They'd never heard the whole thing. And I'm like, I'm looking at the other supervisors that are sitting across from me, and I said, "Did you guys know this?" And they're like, "I don't know, maybe." And I'm like, "We need to tell her that it's not even, this is why she's having trouble." So I brought her in and I said, "Hey, look, I just want you to listen to the tape." So I let her listen to it and I said, did you ever realize that your headset cuts off at a certain decibel? And so when you yell, ma'am, sir, it's cutting off right as you're getting to the that, Matt. And she's like, "Well, how come nobody's ever told me anything about that?" And I looked at the other supervisor and said, "I don't know. I don't know why." Because they've chosen to not be a supervisor. They've chosen not to be a leader. They've chosen the easy route. I'm not going to say nothing. I don't want to make any waves. And sometimes we have to be honest with people. I mean, sometimes you just have to do and step up to the plate and tell somebody what's going on out there. So it's kind of like that commercial. There's a commercial that's on TV that bank robbers come in, they're robbing a bank, they're telling the security guard, they're like, "This is a holdup." And the people that are on the floor look up at the security guard, they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" And then he's like, "Oh no, I don't take care of that kind of stuff. I just monitor the problems." And so I said, "But that's kind of what our supervisors do." I've seen a lot of supervisors out there that do that, that just sit back and monitor problems and say, "Yeah, that's probably a problem." But they don't do nothing about it. They don't take these issues on. And we kind of have to be an adult and step up to the plate out there. I mean, a lot of people, and this is one thing that I try to push out all the time, is that a lot of people think I can't be a leader since I don't have a title or position of authority. That's old school thinking. That's thinking your leadership position only comes from a position, title, rank, something like that. And that's totally not true. So we're going to talk about that. But what if we describe leadership a little bit differently? Could it change your overall perspective of how we do things out there? Consider this. Now, on your screen, you're probably saying to yourself, "Hey, Doug, that's Mr. Miyagi and Daniel's son from The Karate Kid." That's true. The reason I put that up there is because Mr. Miyagi wasn't his supervisor. He wasn't his boss. He was a mentor to that kid and showed him and explained to him why that's considered how to do things. So what if we considered leadership is more about the way you influence people, the way you teach people, the way you help people and guide other people out there? I mean, then basically everybody could be in a leadership position. If you're a CTO, you're a leader. If you're somebody who comes to work every day with great ideas and says, "Hey, let's try this to make it a better place to work at. Let's try this. Let's try these things." You're a leader. There are also leaders in the wrong direction. When you're at work and people are like, "I hate this place. I can't stand what's going on." They're leading in the wrong direction, but they're leading. And we have to kind of think to ourselves, wow, so could I be a leader by just helping somebody? Absolutely. And that's what we talk about with this stuff. And a lot of times people get so stuck on, there's nothing I can do because I'm not a leader. I'm just this or that. And that's crazy. Walt Disney. Now, my ex-wife is a Main Street manager on Disney. And she used to bring home these books all the time about management stuff from Walt Disney and stuff like that. And I saw this one piece of an article he had written about the term leaders should multiply themselves. And I was like, what the hell's old Walt talking about? Walt doesn't know what is going on out there. But what Walt Disney was saying was he believed leadership is a verb based on somebody's action, because too many people believe leadership is a noun based on somebody's title. And that's such a great saying. I wish we had this painted on our walls in our comm centers, because too many people think I'm a leader because I have a position, but you don't act like a leader. You have a title, but you don't act like a leader. We need to understand that. I mean, the role of a leader is to find and develop other leaders. In essence, multiply themselves. I love that saying, because I'm not going to be around forever. So I need to make sure the person that's going to take over in the next position that I've been working on is going to be doing a good job too. And I want them to follow that way. So I'm going to find people and develop those people to be best leaders they can be. It's important to do these things. I mean, when I saw that before, I couldn't believe it out there. Now here's another one. This one, We've all heard next gen 911, next gen CAD, next gen this or that. But what about next gen leadership? I mean, there is a next gen leadership situation going on out there. The future of leadership of your agency depends on current leaders, how and if they're preparing somebody to take over the role. Is your agency forward thinking enough to say, we might want to start grooming some people or giving some people some responsibilities so in case I'm not here anymore, they can continue on and do this? And that's what it's about out there. But a lot of people with great qualifications just get passed over. In my agency specifically, I used to encourage people to take the supervisor test. It'd be like, it's coming up, you should take it. And a lot of people would be like, oh, I can't really do that. I'm like, you can. It's just a lot of times people don't think they can. And they need that person to kind of come along and say, you have that ability. You can do it. It's just you got to you got to want this thing. And that's where encouragement and responsibility and finding new leaders comes into play. I hope your agencies do that. I hope they sit people down and say, you know what, we're not all going to be here forever. These directors are going to be gone some days. These supervisors are going to be gone someday. Maybe they've moved on to some other job or whatever. Somebody's going to take their position. Do you want to just be thrown into the position? Or do you want somebody to take over that's got some ideas, some training, some experience, some knowledge, some know-how to do this kind of stuff? And that's what I'm thinking about. I mean, do you ever consider the future of your agency and who might carry on your hard work, your dedication, your commitment? Do you ever think about that? When you look around the room, do you think, who the heck could take over this place? If I was to suddenly say, I'm going to quit, I found a better job, or I'm going to move out of state or whatever, did you ever look around the room and say, there's a couple people here that could be really good if they had the right kind of mentor or trainer or something like that? So then I ask you, in all sincerity, I ask each one of you, now ask yourself, what have you done? What have you done to inspire those people, to coach those people, to motivate that future leader to be a successful leader? What have you done? A lot of times I hear people say, well, Jim over there would be a good supervisor someday. Okay, so what are we doing for Jim then? Oh, I don't know. He can go find his own stuff out there. No, wait a minute. We need to help people become the best leaders they can be out there. So next gen leadership to me is a big issue. How about this one? Now I will just tell you that I think that I am in my position today. I am where I'm at today because of a couple of people. A couple of people, and one of them specifically was a lieutenant that I had when I worked in LA. And this lieutenant, when I'd been on the job for about, I don't know, 5 years or so, I was really cocky, thought I could handle anything, whatever, no big deal. And every time I saw her, she was always asking me, hey, Doug, have you ever thought about taking a supervisor test? And I'm like, nah, I can't do nothing. And she's like, why not? And I'm like, I'm one person. We have 1,300 dispatchers that work for the Highway Patrol. I'm one. I can't possibly change anything. And she said, yes, you can. And every time I saw her, as I was going to my shift or leaving, she'd call me in her office and she's like, what do you think about this? Or what don't you think you can do these kind of things or all this? And she's really trying to inspire me to do stuff. And she worked with me for like a year. Every time I saw her, she'd be telling me about how I should be a supervisor. I should really try to do this thing. So as I was getting ready to transfer to a different comm center, I was going to Orange County. She told me, Doug, you should really take the supervisor test. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I took the test, and believe it or not, I passed. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So I got the opportunity to go back from Orange County to transfer back to LA as a supervisor. And yes, I was that brand new supervisor on Graveyard, number 17 out of 17. And my very first night back in LA, I'm walking around with the other supervisor who are showing me where my office is. And they're like, this is going to be your office back here. And I'm like, okay. And I walked in and there was a chair and a desk. And on the desk was nothing except a phone. And on that phone was a little red light. And that little red light was flashing. And I was like, who the hell left me a message here? This is my first night on Graveyard in LA. Who could possibly even know I'm even here? So I listened to the message, and guess who it was? It was that lieutenant. And she goes, "Look where you're at, Doug. Look what you've done. Positive attitude. Look where you're at." And I'm like, "Damn you." I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's really like pushed me along to this thing." So over the next few years after that, we'd been in contact periodically. She had moved on to a different center. I was at a different place. But we'd been in contact, and she'd been still powering me, like saying, "Come, you can do this stuff, and look what the changes you can make, and all these things." And then one day I got called, and they said, "Hey, we need some work up here at the academy. We want you to put in for that position to take over the state training program." And I was like, "Me? You're kidding." Okay. So I said, "All right." And usually you had to apply for it and go to an interview. I didn't do any of that. So they just wanted me to go up there. And I told them, if I go up there, I'm going to shake the house up because I don't like the way they're doing stuff. And they're like, "We know, we've heard it. Come up." So I moved up to Sacramento, and I get up there. And my very first day at the academy, I'm walking around with two sergeants, and they're showing me like where the officers do their stuff. And then they were showing me, this is where I can park, because my students can park, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." And so then they said, "Oh, this is your office in this building." And I'm like, "All right." I go into the building, open the door to the office. There's my desk, a chair. On the desk is a phone. And yes, believe it or not, red light flashing. And I'm like, who the hell left me a message? This is my first day at the academy. So I listened to the message, and guess who it was? It was that lieutenant again. And she goes, "Look where you are now, Doug." She goes, "Now you're in charge of the whole thing. There you go." And she goes, "I knew you could do this kind of stuff." And man, she has been like this constant force in my life for such a long time. We're still friends on the Facebook. Listen to me, on Facebook. And it's nice to kind of, she's still, every time she sees me update, like I'm going to New York or wherever, she's like, "I look at where you're at. Look at where you're at." And I'm like, I blame her. I'd say that it's her fault, because Jan hired me back in the good old days. Sandy trained me really well, and that lieutenant encouraged me. And when I talked to her about that stuff, she said, "You know what? I saw something in you that you didn't see yourself. And I knew I could get you to see it if I just worked with you." And I'm like, I think all of us in this business need a mentor, or they need you to be the mentor to somebody, and kind of be in their pocket, and kind of say, "You can do this. You can do these things." And it's important to kind of say, I need to pass on my knowledge, my experiences, or whatever I see out there. And that's where I think mentorship is an awesome thing out there. I mean, it really is. Okay, so I told you that I do a lot of research in the man, the sun is out today. I do a lot of research in the business world, and I like to show a couple of terms that they do use in the business world. And one of them is this ROA. And the ROA is the result of activity. What did you do, and what was the result of it? So in the business world, they showed one example was this. They said, if it was a nice spring day, weather's beautiful, it's outside, you're the manager of Walgreens or Rite Aid or whoever, and you decide, "I'm going to put all the umbrellas up at the front of the store and put them on sale." Are you going to sell any? Probably not. But when it's raining outside and it's storming outside, and they put those same umbrellas out front, what's going to happen? They're going to sell them all. That's a result of the activity. That's when you have end caps at stores where they put the sale stuff out there, and they put it at a certain height where they know they're going to get kids or adults to look at this stuff. It's all ROA stuff. So I took that and thought, can we apply that to what we do in our dispatch? Yes. If you're training somebody and you're working with them and you're doing something that doesn't work and they still don't get it, the result of you spending 2 hours doing it this way didn't work. You need to change. You need to do something else. I mean, we have to kind of look at the way we do everything in the comm center with this ROA to say, what did we do? What was the result of it? So here's another one. Like if you're talking, I got to get out of the sun here. If you're talking to somebody and counseling them on their behavior, and they go right back on the floor and they do it again, what was the result of the activity? You didn't do it right. It wasn't them. It was you. You didn't give the message clearly to say, this is what we need to do. So consider the ROA all the time, because that's a strategic business perspective, which determines how you solve stuff based on results, not based on, well, that's how we've always done it. Just like recruitment. When I talked a little bit about this yesterday, recruitment, when I hear people say they put ads in a newspaper or whatever, I'm like, that is the dumbest idea ever. Nobody reads newspapers anymore. We have to consider what we actually do. So it's important to kind of understand the business world is the ROA, result of the activity. What did you do? And what was the result of it? So here's some more business strategies. This is another one. This is the CX. You go to any kind of business conference, you're going to hear somebody talk about CX. CX is the customer experience. You know, when you walk into a business and you'll see a cashier on their phone, not even talking to you, just doing their thing. What's the experience? It's bad, right? Because you're walking into that store to hand them money for a product, and they don't want it. They're too busy on their phone. They're too busy talking to their friends. They're too busy to address you. I see this all the time whenever we go anywhere. And Jill does this to me all the time too. When we'll see somebody doing something like that, just lean over and say CX. It's like, I know. It's just amazing to me when I go to conferences and I see vendors sitting in their booth on their phone, not even looking up as I'm standing right in front of them. And I'm like, they don't know who I am. What if I was going to buy this stuff? They don't want to sell it to me. So that CX is a bad thing. Now I said, how can I turn that into what we use for leadership and supervision? I said, well, let's try it this way then. How about the LX? What is the leadership experience that we have at our comm centers? Do we have a good experience? Do we not? Are supervisors actually in a position that actually does something or not? And we have to kind of understand that if we're going to evaluate leadership and supervisors, we kind of have to look within. Look here first. Am I doing something right? Did I do something wrong? Did I not know how to do something? We have to consider those things out there. I mean, supervisors or leaders should be all these things. They should be responsive, honest. Oh my God, really? Honest, reliable, treat everybody fairly, helpful, and motivational. And I push that message a lot about motivation because I want people to come to work in a good mood. I don't want them to dread coming to work. I don't want them when you call them from a day off and say, can you come in early or whatever? I don't want them saying, oh my God, this is crazy. No, I don't want that. I want them to say, sure, I can do that kind of stuff. I'll come in because I want that kind of positivity going throughout our centers out there. Important to have these things. When I was in charge of the state, we had to do this cost benefit analysis. I don't know if any of you have ever done that, but how much does it cost to hire one person for 1 year? And you got to start taking into account every single thing they do. If they submit an application, somebody's going to review that and they're getting the salary. If they come for an interview, if you've got a panel of people on the interview panel, all those people are getting paid. They're all getting benefits. That goes into figures too. If we're going to be at my agency and you get hired, or sorry, you go to the doctor to get a physical, we're going to pay for that too, and the doctor's time. Psychological, we're going to pay for that too. Testing, we're going to pay for that too. If we send you to the academy, we're going to pay for all that too. All your travel's paid for. Food, lodging, everything for up to 3 weeks is paid for. Then you come back and you sit with somebody for a couple of months. That person's getting a full check too. Think of the cost factor behind everything you do. And it really is shocking when I hear people say, oh, well, we lost a couple more. We can't keep anybody here. We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on that. And not only the cost factor of money, but what about the cost factor of people? If we're running through 100 people every year trying to get people to work there by interviewing people, sending backgrounds, doing all these things, that can take a toll on a lot of things. I could be doing a lot more stuff than sitting there trying to conduct a background investigation on somebody. If I could just maintain staffing. So, I mean, think of these things. Think of the training courses you're taking. Are you taking these training courses to actually learn something? Or are you taking them just to get credits? Well, I need another 8-hour credit. Let's take some damn class. Wait a minute. We should take classes because we want to learn something, not because of that. And that's what drives me crazy with some of the classes. I see people take classes that have nothing to do with their job. Nothing. And I'm like, it will leave you with nothing. When you come out of that class, you're not going to come out saying, hey, let's try this or let's do that. You're not going to have that. You're going to have people coming out saying, okay, I got my 8 hours credit. Can I put that on my chart now? It's like, I just think that kind of stuff is just crazy out there. How about this? When we talk about supervisors or leaders, there's a lot of changes coming to comm centers. A lot. We're going to talk about some of those in a minute. But a lot of big companies that have people in charge that don't evaluate and adjust to stay relevant in our busy world out there. Things are changing in the business world all the time. And they're just relying on, we've always done it this way and it should work. And it leads them all into chapter 11 where they start filing for these things. Here's some people that don't listen to change, that don't lead to a change, that don't have people saying, let's make a change for God's sakes. I mean, you got stores like Sears. Sears is where America shops. Sears was founded in the 1800s as a general store with Sears and Roebuck. It's like it's been around forever. And now they filed bankruptcy. There's only a few of them left. They merged with Kmart, who also filed Chapter 11. I mean, they're both going out. JCPenney, Macy's, Toys R Us, the fastest liquidation of any store out there, so quick. Blockbuster, there's only one left. It's in Bend, Oregon. So if you're up in Bend, Oregon, you can enjoy that one. BlackBerry phones. Remember BlackBerry phones? If you had a BlackBerry phone, you were it. You were like, wow, that person's got a BlackBerry. How cool is that? And it's one of those things where it's like, you don't even think about it at the time, but BlackBerry, there's a book out about this incident. BlackBerry had management saying, we've got to change. Smartphones are coming. We've got to change. And the people that were running BlackBerry said, oh, no. People love our phones. They'll never leave us. It'll always be like this. And they went right out of business. And it's one of those things where you think about it and you think, oh, my gosh. I mean, these people had the opportunity of a lifetime to move. I mean, Blockbuster's a prime example. When Blockbuster was really big, a small fledgling company called Netflix approached them and said, could we merge with you guys? Would you guys like to join forces? And Blockbuster said, you guys will never catch on. And that's an embarrassment. I mean, it's like people don't look forward and say, I want to lead our place into the future. I want to see where we're going. I want them to do this stuff. Now, there's a couple of stores out there that do this. These right here, Lowe's and Best Buy, have forward-thinking leadership in their place. Best Buy came up with that Geek Squad, which was revolutionary because they realized people like to buy high-end equipment, but they don't necessarily know how to use it. So Best Buy had those Geek Squad come out there. Lowe's, and this is the funny one, I saw this whole thing about Lowe's management and supervisors said, okay, Home Depot is killing us. So they said, who is Home Depot's clientele? They're catering to contractors. Come in, buy some lumber, and leave. Because if you go into a Home Depot, it looks like a garage. It's black and orange. It just looks like a garage. So Lowe's said, well, wait a minute. Who buys the most DIY, do-it-yourself projects of anybody? Women. So they said, we're going to change our store. So that if you go into a Lowe's, it's very bright in there. It's got lots of sales stuff. There's people walking around with those blue aprons saying, can I help you? It's like, this is the big thing out there. They understood that. And guess what? Their sales took off and went unbelievable. They're killing Home Depots. I mean, they're probably going to drive Home Depot out. But Home Depot is actually changing now. If you go into the store, they're changing a little bit like that now. So they understood change out there. Successful leadership requires honest self-evaluations and the ability to make changes. Look here, first, I always tell people, stop pointing fingers at everybody else. Say, look what they're doing. Look at this. Look at that. Look here. Are you allowing this stuff to continue without saying, hey, wait, let's stop that. Let's be more positive at work. Let's do things out there. Let's think about this stuff. New technology is coming fast, and we need to be ready for it. Let's look into the future by looking a little bit into the past. And yes, if you're young enough to look at the screen saying, what the hell's MTV and VH1? They used to play music on those things. Not anymore. So when you look at the technology, when I first started my job back in 1990, we had these things, pagers. Pagers and beepers were awesome. We could do so much stuff with these things. Not a lot of people had cell phones at the time. It was pretty expensive to have a cell phone, and you were somebody if you had one. But beepers were great because you could send somebody a bunch of numbers and turn the beeper over and it said something real dirty. So it was great. It was a fun thing to do out there, but nobody said, we're going to resist change. I want to keep my beeper forever. I guarantee nobody here has a beeper because it didn't work anymore. What about some events that caused change in public safety that required good leadership to get us through this thing? I mean, 9/11 was a big one, right? When 9/11 happened, it changed the way a lot of things work out there, and a lot of us needed good leadership to say, we're going to move in this direction. Well, one of the earlier ones was this big thing, Y2K. If you remember when Y2K happened, we had to all work graveyard that night because they thought as soon as the computers flip over to 2000, they'll shut everything down, all the lights will go out, power's going to go off. It was a big old thing. It didn't happen. but we had management that was telling us, "Hey, let's get ready for this. Let's plan backup things. Let's do all this stuff." And that's what I'm talking about. If you don't have any backup plan in place, that's a problem, right? So you need to kind of have that thing. So that's a big one. Dispatching is going to pivot to new technology. Texting, you probably all have that. Pictures coming in through text, video coming in through text. Body cam videos are going to be sent directly to comm centers. There's so much coming right now. And as a good supervisor or leader, there's one thing you should all be concentrating on. And this is something I try to push in a lot of classes because it's going to happen, folks. And we need to be ready for these things. What about building resiliency in each of us? You know, our job is a lot different. When you're on the phone with somebody and somebody says something, that's different. But when you see it, and now you have a picture of it in front of you, you can't unsee it. I mean, if somebody sends you something horrific or they text you something bad, you can't unsee those things. And that comes with a lot of responsibility. And it's like, to me, whenever I've talked about that in the past years ago, telling people videos coming, everybody's like, it's never going to come. It's here. But a lot of people said, I don't want to do my job with that if that's going to be the case. And I'm like, no, but our good management, good supervisors, good leaders should definitely be talking about building resiliency in each of us to handle emotionally and physically handle these things when you see something like that. You know, when I was in charge of our state training program, I was asking the officers up there that were in charge of training, how much time do you train our officers on handling the fact if they see a dead body, like somebody ripped up in front of them or shot to death in front of them right there? And they're like, we don't spend that much time on it because we're telling them, you know, you need to clear the scene and get the stuff in order and all these things. And I'm like, what about the emotional toll when they see that for the first or second time? And they're like, we really don't talk about that. And I'm like, but see, that's the thing. I think we all need to talk about it because we hear people that have gone through I'm a prime example. My last year of employment, I had a very nasty suicide, and that thing racked me up good. I mean, it really was a very nasty situation, and holy cats. It was something I was like, I didn't even want to talk about at the time. It was just terrible. But it's one of those things where it's like, I don't remember ever having a discussion at training talking about how to build that resiliency to say, you know, we handle these things. Here's how we get through it. Here's how we work through. Now I'm a huge believer in peer support. Now I'm like a real big pusher on that. I believe in peer support. I think it's great. Everybody should be part of this thing. So building resiliency, to me, a big issue for all of us to deal with these things. I mean, leadership, the face of leadership is going to change all the time. It used to be years ago, if your boss told you something, you went and did it. Now, if your boss tells you something, what happens? People want to know why. Why am I doing that? What's that about? Leadership's going to change. And I got this particular thing, because I told you I do a lot of research in the outside world. I got that, and there's a whole thing. When I teach this class, it's an 8-hour class. There's a whole thing on this. But Brene Brown talks about this. And you don't know who that is. She's a great speaker, does a lot of TED Talks, things, stuff like that. But she talks about the fact that leadership is changing from being authoritarian to being more, I got to explain myself. And sometimes that's hard for people to do. People just want to give you an order, and it's like, it doesn't work like that anymore. How about this? I always ask in classes, if you go to my class, you're going to have to say it. I always ask, what do you bring to the table? Why should anybody make you a supervisor? Or if you are a supervisor, why should you stay? Why should you stay as a supervisor? And I always ask people, you know, write down your skills, tell me what they are. And I have a lot of people that have a real difficult time with this. Because they're like, well, I think I'm this or I think I'm that. I mean, I always tell them, you know, you should have these things on your mind all the time. Willing to take some chances. Come up with some ideas. I've come up with ideas that worked, and I've come up with ideas that didn't work. And you have to keep trying new things to keep everybody engaged and keep everybody ready to go and prepared. Inspiring stuff, fair, open communications, talking to everybody and not being afraid to, you know, I used to, when I was really new as a dispatcher back in the really early 90s, I remember I hated walking by the supervisor office because I didn't want to make eye contact. I was like, God, if I say anything, they're going to call me in. It's like, oh, God. And it was like, because there really was no open communication. It was basically the only time you go to the supervisor's office if you're in trouble. That was about it. And I unfortunately went in there quite a bit. Strategic thinking everything you do should have a purpose. Positivity, creativity, responsibility, and empowering people. I mean, that's when I ask people, what do you bring to the table? These are some of the things you should think. Do I have these skills? But what if you don't have those skills? What if you say, you know what, Doug, I'm not really, really good at communicating with people. I'm not good at it. Well, there's a thing you can do. How about research? How about some research? There is tons of books out there on leadership. I mean, go to Amazon. You'll get a million books out there on leadership. Our podcasts, YouTube, TV show. There's all kinds of things on leadership. You watch that and you think, what can I take away from this show that they're talking about this, or this podcast, or this paper? What is it I can take away from that and help me become a better leader? I have most of these books on the shelf behind me because I think there's nothing wrong with looking at what's happening in the business world and saying, "Ooh, that would make a good thing. Let's try that in our world. Let's get that going." So if you don't have this kind of stuff, you're cuckoo. You need to kind of have these things. So it's important to have that stuff. Here's something that's going to really date me, and I hate to kind of say it, but it is. Um, Back in the good old days, Coke bottles used to have at the bottom of the Coke bottle a little ring that said, "No deposit, no return." Meaning you got to turn in a bunch of bottles to get some money, and then you go buy some candy and have a great time. But I look at it differently and think, what are the deposits you're making in your career? What are those deposits you're making? Are you researching stuff? Are you going to conferences and looking at the new technology and then taking that information back and talking to your crew and saying, hey, they got this coming. Here's what we should know about it. Here's how we get planned for these things. This is exactly what we did for texting. Before we ever got texting, we researched it and said, what should we do with this? Should we come up with a policy before we have this stuff? Yes. And we came up with policies before before we got it installed. So, I mean, what's the investment you're making in yourself to make yourself the best supervisor, leader, manager, whatever you want to call yourself? What is that thing you're investing in yourself? And I just love that philosophy of no deposit, no return. Because if you don't make any deposits in your career, you'll get no return. You're going to end up where you were, and that's it. And we can't have that kind of stuff. We need to make sure we say to ourselves, wait a minute, I'm going to invest in myself and make sure that the investment I'm making is going to help me in the long run. If I got to read a book on leadership or watch a video or watch a TED Talk or whatever, and I can take away some things with that and think, let me look at myself first. What am I missing? What's my weakness as a supervisor, as a leader? What is it? I need to improve that or improve these things. And that's what I'm talking about with that stuff. So, I mean, every agency must have a purpose. If you're a supervisor, you should have no problem with this next thing I'm going to show you. You should say, Doug, I've got it. But I'll tell you what, every single class I've ever taught around the country, I have the same responses of people saying, I've heard it, I've seen it, I know something about it. But how many of you know your mission statement, your core values, your vision statement? If you're a supervisor or a leader, you better know what it is. Because if it says, we have to provide, excellent public service to the public, or excellent service to our public, whatever it might say, I always ask people, does it ever say, do you ever see a mission statement that says, we, the members of this police department, will occasionally provide good service? No, it's all the time. And if you're a leader, if you're a supervisor, you might want to know what this says. I used to go over this thing all the time. We used to talk to people about it all the time. We'd go over it all the time. When I was in charge of the training academy, we would talk about it every day before they left to go to dinner. We would talk about this thing and talk about, what's it mean to you? What does it mean when it says show professionalism? I mean, when it says show respect to each other. I mean, we have to kind of understand this is the foundation of how we handle everything at our work. And if you're a supervisor and you have no idea what it says, and I saw Heather said she knows where to find it, but it's like if you don't know what it actually is, then it makes it hard to do your job. So that's why when you leave my class, you'll know what yours is. Because we're going to go over it. And I have everybody find it and read it to us all in the class. And some of them are great. I mean, some of them are absolutely great. And some are not so great. And the ones that are not so great, I always tell people, hey, go back and tell them. You went to this dopey guy's class. He's talking about the importance of a mission statement. I think ours is a little heavy-handed or a little light or whatever. I came up with a new one. Can we talk about this and maybe we can implement these things? I'm telling you. Because I've seen some of them that are just, I mean, really. They say like, under the Constitution of the United States of America. And I'm like, we're going to go that high up? We're going to go that high. I mean, we're going to start way up there. It's like, it should be something that everybody can know and everybody can follow. And that's what the importance of mission statements and core values are. And it's important to have these things. I went to a teacher conference one time. I'm not a teacher, but I went to a teacher conference because I wanted to see the guy that was speaking. His name is Danny. He's a really great guy. So he was talking about this thing of forecasting leadership. And he said, we're always searching for leaders who think like thermostats, not thermometers. And I'm like, the hell is he talking about? Is he a weatherman or something up there? I'm like, what's he talking about? So you think, what's the difference between a thermostat and a thermometer as far as a leader? Thermometers take the temperature. Thermostats set the temperature. What kind of climate are you setting when you go to work? I love that. That was so cool. I was like, oh my God, he's talking to teachers, but I can take this and merge it into dispatch. Because think of when you walk into your office every day, when you walk through the floor, are you like, hey, good morning, everybody. Hello, welcome, whatever. Or are you sitting in your office with the door closed going, leave me alone? What climate are you setting? I mean, does everybody on the floor need an umbrella to cover themselves? Or can everybody say, here they come. Great, they're coming in. This is good. I mean, we kind of have to say, and when I saw this, I said, I've got to pass this on to our folks and say, hey, everybody, this is something that I think is pretty damn cool to have that. So it's something to think about. Here's another one of these outside agency people that I watch all the time and bring it in is John Tapper from Bar Rescue. His whole thing is, I don't embrace excuses, I embrace solutions. He doesn't want to hear about a bar that's running poorly, about, oh yeah, we can't do this, can't do that. What are you going to do about it? How do we correct it? So if you've got a employee that's having a problem out there on the floor, disciplining them is not going to work. How do we get them back on track? This is the thing I used to tell new supervisors all the time. Our job is not to like go out and paddle them. Our job is to get them back on track. How do we get them back on board of what we're doing? Let's spend some time. Let's talk to them. Let's work with them. Let's make sure they understand the message. They know our core values, all these things to kind of get them back on track. I mean, we're not going to just punish people. That doesn't do anything. So, I mean, when I hear his stuff out there about it's your choice, excuses or success, what do you want? And I'm like, I just love that kind of philosophy of stop complaining about it. Come up with a way to fix it. And let's fix the dang thing out there. So it's important. Here's another one from John Tapper, and I thought this was even a better one. I was like, oh my gosh. He said, the greatest gift of leadership is a boss who wants you to be successful and shows it. Because successful employees make a successful business. My God, think to yourself, your employees, if I went to ask your employees, do you think your supervisors want you to be successful? And if so, how do they show you that? How do they give that to you? And we have to kind of think. Now, I'll tell you what, I worked at a place that'll go unnamed, but there was a big morale problem there. That's why they brought me in there, big morale problem. And so I get there and I'm like, nobody's talking. They're all kind of ignoring each other. And I asked the manager, well, what are we doing about this? And she goes, I don't get it, Doug. I don't get it at all. I buy them pizzas on Friday. I buy them Starbucks during the week, and they're still angry. I said, all you've done is feed and drink these people, or gave them some drinks. You haven't showed them what's important. And I sat down with each one of them, and we kind of went through them of what's important, what should we be doing. One of our big skills, our critical task is interpersonal relations. If you have bad interpersonal relations, I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. It's not. This is a business. I need you to be polite and friendly, and it's like, I just need that kind of stuff. I can't have you ignoring people or talking around people or doing that kind of stuff. We don't do that kind of thing. So that's how we show you to be successful out there. Here's some more ways that I was saying maybe we can do this to kind of make it successful. Everybody needs to be acknowledged for their hard work. And I don't mean, okay, that same center that I just talked about a second ago with the pizza and the Starbucks, she said, you know what, every month we do an employee of the month. And I just started at the top of the roster. And she goes, I'll give that one January, then February, then March. And I'm like, so what happens after the year? Well, we start over. I'm like, so you're giving them employee of the month based on the month, not based on their skills or what they've done or anything like that. And she goes, well, it's an encourage, or not encourage. It's a way to kind of you motivate them. And I'm like, so I asked them all, what do you guys think about this? And they said they're so stupid, they don't even like them. And I'm like, That's what I'm talking about. It's that, and it is, Lori, it's that trophy mentality that that lady was thinking this is the way to do it. Crazy. I mean, compliments in our business are it's going to immediately set you apart. And I'm talking simple, sincere gestures, not something flippant like, yeah, thanks for doing that. Whatever. I could have done better, but you did it. Okay, whatever. No, I want these sincere, not grandiose kind of things, but just telling somebody, hey, you know, the other night when I asked you to call that thing, I'm glad you did. Thank you for that. Or you covered my shift for me. Thanks for that. I mean, saying something positive isn't hard, but it can mean so much to somebody who maybe is feeling disengaged, complacent, unappreciated. And now you've come and told them, hey, you know what? Maybe I didn't tell you this before, but thanks for helping me out the other night with that call. I mean, that's a simple little thing, but it can go so much out there. How about this? This seems simple to me, but a lot of people, it's just, oh, I don't know about that. Have you ever told the person that hired you, thanks for hiring me? You could have hired anybody else, but you picked me and hired me. It's like that person that hired me, Jan, she passed away a couple of months ago. But if you looked at her Facebook page for the past 10, 15 years at least, everybody was updating it that she hired so many people. She hired more people than I did. And it's like, but people are just putting comments on it. Thanks for hiring me, Jan, taking a chance. I told her many, many times I had no experience in public safety, and I was a private investigator for 10 years, and she saw something in me that she hired me, and I was like, damn, that's great. Because she could have hired anybody, but she hired me. Same thing with you. If that person's still around that hired you, I don't care if it's been 10 years, go tell them, you know what? I probably have never said this to you, but I do appreciate the time that you actually took the chance and hired me. That's leadership. That's being an adult. I mean, that's important. How about the person that trained you? The person that trained you. Have you ever said that and said, hey, you know what? It's been a long time, but I do appreciate the way you trained me. Sandy knows because a lot of stuff I trained today in our Training for Success class is from her. Because I saw the way she did it, and I saw the way she made training a good thing. And I was like, damn, that's cool. So, I mean, go make it a nice effort to tell somebody, I appreciate what you did for me in the past. Thank you for this. It's like it's led me to where I'm at today, all those things. So it's important to do these things. Now, as I get ready to close out here, I just want to tell you, every class I teach, I talk about this leave a legacy. Because a lot of times, people don't realize the legacy they're making, they're leaving out there. If you train somebody, that person you train is going to go on to train other people, and they're going to use what you've done. You've built that legacy. I mean, our company motto of Leave a Legacy reminds everybody that your legacy is being built every day, through every interaction, one day at a time. You know, working in public safety, you're given a chance to touch many lives, probably don't realize the incredible impact you've had to even alter somebody's possible future history. And I know a lot of people say, you cannot change history, Doug. It just can't happen. It can, because you don't realize that history, and I'm a huge history person in real life, but history doesn't just go backward, but history's going forward. All those cool things that haven't happened yet, that's just history waiting to be written down. And that's what it's all about. And a lot of times we forget those kind of things. I mean, some of you are going to go out and affect hundreds of people. Go out and teach classes. You're going to go maybe write something that's going to change classes. And some of you will do it on a more personal way, helping an anonymous caller, a coworker, just being there for somebody. When you see somebody had a bad call and you're like, hey, are you okay? That sounds like a tough call over there. You all right? That's important out there. That's how we change things. That's how you change history, by when you act and do something out there. I mean, we have to consider these things. I'll give you an example of something. I was training at a comm center, and I was walking with the director. And I said, hey, can I go see the actual dispatch center? And she goes, yeah, sure. So we were going down this hallway. We make the turn. We're going down this hallway. And this is in Wisconsin. If you're from Wisconsin, I would probably tell you the actual place. So we're walking down this hallway to get into the comm center. The comm center's doors at the end down there. But on the way to the comm center, on this side of the wall, is this just cheap paper cutout hearts with a little information written on them, taped to the wall. And on this side of the wall is all these just cheap, I'm talking piece of paper, cut out storks on the wall. And I'm like, damn, your people like to get married and have a lot of damn kids. And she goes, no, Doug, these are people's lives they've saved with EMD, and these are babies they've delivered. And I'm like, oh my God. Because you think about that. Every day when you walk down that hallway, you're going to see people that are alive because of you. How powerful is that to know these people are having lives and families and adventures and things because of what you do for a living? That's a legacy you can't avoid. That legacy is so important that you have to think to yourself, I'm saving lives. I'm making a difference out there. And I have to understand my job is that serious, that important, that necessary. I mean, I should be so proud of my career. And I hope you all are proud of your career. I mean, so I'll ask you the question again. Are your supervisors really leaders? The answer is up to you, how you want to do it. It's important not to forget and say, oh, I'll wait for somebody else to give me that training. Go out and get it yourself. Go out and do these things. So I do appreciate everybody's time and efforts today right there, Ricardo. I am all complete out there. So if you want to jump on the screen with me, that would be awesome. We could do, but that's fine.
Easy.
Well,
excellent work as always, man.
thank
Very,
you
very
very much.
nice.
Thank
And
you.
I like what Heather put in there. She's saying, a lot of directors are getting some random text messages right now.
I know.
For
I
sure,
saw
for
that.
sure. Yeah,
I said, that's cool, though. I mean, wouldn't that be
that-
cool to get? I mean, I think that'd be great.
yeah, no, for real. To be able to get that, that recognition, because a lot of
Yeah.
times, we don't know, we don't know what is going on.
Yeah.
That impact that we might have on somebody. So those folks who
Yeah.
are getting these random text messages out of nowhere, it's a good moment, man. And you
I
did
love that stuff. I love that kind of stuff where people take that and say, let me just try it. And I've had people in classes do that where they're like, the person who hired me is in this class. And I'm like, have you ever said it? And they're like, no. I'm like, now.
Yeah, do it now.
I'm like, my gosh, it's such an easy thing to do, but it means so much to people to say that. So I mean, I got a friend that just was updating my Instagram yesterday when I put this class I was going to teach.
Mm-hmm.
She made some random comments about some supervisors we both worked with, but she's like, you were not like that. You were like this. And it's like, when you get those kind of things, you're like, damn, that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. People think I did a good job. So
that is awesome. I have spoken to a couple of the people that gave me that chance, and my chief from Florida, he sent me a message out of nowhere one day, and he saw all the stuff that I had been doing, and he told me that he was proud of me, and I was like, oh shit. And I said to him, I said, well, thank you and Lieutenant for giving me a shot, because I had no experience, I had no idea. And they took a shot, and everything led to all of this. And then when I moved back to Southwest Michigan again, I got another shot, and I thank that lieutenant as well. And it has been awesome, man.
Coolest thing.
It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of people don't realize the impact it has to tell somebody, I do appreciate what you did for me. It's like, it's nice to have that. So
as always, you killed it, man.
Yes. Thanks, and I appreciate everybody listening.
Well done. Yes.
Commenting. I was trying to watch this while I wore my glasses today, so I could actually read them. Yesterday I didn't have them on, so I'm kind of like, I can't see what they're saying.
No, excellent work as always. And everyone as well, they're on the community as well. I've got their links in there. So if you're in the attendee feed, over in the community and circle, up at the top, there are links there, and go to the sponsor links, and then you'll find the link there for Showalter and Company to go see everything they're doing. Make sure to follow them. Check out We Speak Dispatch. Always a good time. And we will be heading to the next session here in just a moment. The next session is going to be with Emily Smith, and she's going to be doing a session called Coordinating Chaos, Navigating Your Own Personal Crisis. So we'll see you over there here in just a moment.
See you, everybody. Thanks.